Hey, listeners, welcome to another episode of the Envision podcast. My name is Charmaine, and I'm the community specialist here at Envision. And in today's episode, I'm going to be having a very exciting conversation with one of our community members. Her name is Chela Robles, and we're going to be having a very interesting conversation about Braille. This is a topic that resonates with her and I, but also with a lot of you who might be listening with us today. And so we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll be talking about what Braille means for Chela throughout this conversation. So first of all, Chela, thank you so much for agreeing to join us on this episode of the Envision podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you on with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So in celebration of World Braille Day, and for those that don't know, this is an event that's celebrated internationally around the world in the month of January. I thought it would be a good idea to have this exciting conversation with you. And we're going to be talking about all things Braille. So since you're a valued member of our Envision community, and you also have lived experience of not only what it's like to grow up learning Braille, but also what it's like to transcribe or produce it, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this topic. And I know many of us who's Braille users in the BLV community will enjoy hearing your thoughts as well. So I have created some questions to help guide our discussion today, and we're just going to get started with those. So to start with, just before we get into the discussion about Braille, I understand that you're an Envision Glasses user, right? So can we start off by having you tell me and our listeners just like a little bit about yourself and about your journey with using the Envision Glasses? So what's it been like for you?
Hi, my name is Chela Robles, and I'm a totally blind envisioner and beta tester, actually. And I've been using Envision Glasses since since 2021, June of 2021 is when I got my Envision Glasses. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. So I've been using the glasses since 2021. I actually was turned on to the Envision Glasses when I actually went to the NFB of California state convention in 2019. My friend Ian from Santa Rosa, I believe the company's called Access Ingenuity. They actually do distribute these Envision glasses. And anyway, Ian Ramos told me about them, and I pretty much him-hawed until 2021 about it. I mean, I downloaded the app, and I at that point, before they came out with the fact that the app was free, I paid a lifetime subscription for the app, which I think was like $99 at the time.
Wow.
And then then I him-hawed about getting the Envision glasses. I'm like, yeah, but no, I don't know. And then I said, okay, fine. Ira's becoming a little too much. I can't afford the subscription for that. So I'll just bite the bullet. I actually had enough money and then some to pay for the Envision glasses at whole price or full price. And then within like 2, maybe 3 days, I actually got the glasses and was able to get it set up and going. And Ian ended up being my first Envision companion.
Oh, nice.
So that was awesome. And then I also love the ally feature that we that we've been testing. It's a great feature to have too. But no, I was born totally blind. Well, not born totally blind. I mean, I became blind at 3 months old due to retinopathy of prematurity. So, and I do love Braille. I've loved Braille since I started learning at the age of 3 years old, prior to anybody else back then in the 1980s learning it.
You remind me a lot of me. I was also born with ROP, and I also loved Braille growing up, and I also learned it at the age of 3 or 4 years old. So, well, we have that common ground, and I'm sure we have a lot of common things to share.
Yeah.
So that's a very good segue. Let's learn to the topic of Braille. Let's turn to the topic of Braille itself now. So to start with, just tell us, like, what was it like for you to learn Braille? Did you learn it like I did? I learned it in a very, informal and controlled and uncontrolled way, where I just sort of grabbed books that were given to me and, started to read and learn all I could. That's at least how I learned it in the beginning before I decided to study it. So, how did you learn it?
I pretty much learned it. It was through play, actually.
Oh.
What I mean by that, it was very experiential for me. I really hope that you don't hear any of the background noise going on. My dad's listening to the news. But anyway, I learned how to do Braille at a preschool called White Pony in Lafayette, California. I'm from Concord, California. Anyway, apparently I went to 2 preschools, but that particular preschool, because I went to one in Castro Valley and then I went to White Pony, but the one in Lafayette at White Pony, I pretty much had a hands-on experience with learning Braille. I had a really nice instructor by the name of Dr. Bill Hawkins. He wasn't a doctor at that point. He ended up getting his doctorate in teaching special ed or something like that. I don't know, but I still am in contact with him after all these years. And so, he taught me how to read and write Braille with this little tin that we had, this tray that had 6 holes that simulated a Braille cell. Okay. And in each cutout cell, there was, he would place M&Ms or, various round food items that would simulate the dots, and then he would ask me, he would show me what the letter A looked like in Braille, and so I would tap on the one on the left, the first dot I came to, and then after I did, I would tap his fingers and he would press down on the keys of the cast iron Braille writer, which I still have. And then I would feel the dot, and then I don't know why I'd do this, but I would giggle with excitement, and then I would actually eat the Cheeto or the M&M.
Oh, wow.
He would make it so fun.
You got reinforcement right away.
He'd make it so fun that I also ended up taping. Well, first of all, that was another way I learned mobility. Learning cane travel at that age was to be unheard of.
Right.
In the 1980s, because they kind of scoffed at that. They're like, oh, they're too young to learn that. You have to be, a certain age to learn that. Well, no, you don't. And that's
Mhm.
how I also came to know, like I said, echolocation. And, if you learn these things early on enough, you'll get it. And right away too. And anyway, I remember having to learn where my class was, where the tunnel was, where he would play his mouth trumpet, which I guess that was my foray into learning about my love of music at that age. I don't know. I just know that I loved what he did with his mouth, and it was just astounding to me. You know, I was trying to find the music with every wall, every nook, every cranny, and then I felt where the music was coming from because he showed me his neck and his Adam's apple, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then every time I would get to a certain destination, I would come to a strip of the word four, as in FOR, not the
Mhm.
number
Right.
four, because those were the 6 dots that
Right. Yeah.
simulated,
Mhm.
Braille. And so, since I wasn't reading full words or anything like that, then, um, he pretty much showed me this is where the, you know, uh, tunnel is. Feel the bumpity bumps, he says, and then I'm like, okay. So I reach up and I feel the bumps, and I knew where I was. And then he would play I Can't Get Started by Bunny Berrigan, which ended up being my favorite song and
Mhm.
is I call my mobility song, my walking
Oh,
song
nice.
that I learned to, and it was all thanks to learning Braille. I mean, I think if you learn honestly Braille and other skills at a very young age, you'll get by very quick. I mean, mobility especially. I mean, you should have seen me in like high school. I was weaving through kids that weren't paying attention, and yes, I would get a broken cane every now and then, but that was not my fault.
Exactly.
and
Yeah, we all know about the broken canes, and that's happened to me as well,
one
and
time, one
many of
time,
us. Mhm.
and one time, my Braille writer flew off the desk, and
Oh,
part
wow.
of it, the part where the carriage
Yeah, the
is
carriage return. Mhm.
broke in the
Oh, uh-oh.
and I was like, "Oh,
Gotta
no."
be more careful,
All
yeah.
all I did
Mhm.
was bend it down to pick up a book that I dropped, and because I was in one of those little desks that had a chair connected to it, I'm like, "Oh, this is great." So, they learned from then on that I needed to have an actual table, not an actual.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That was funny, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh." It
Yeah,
was
I
great.
remember the days of carrying braille writers around class to class,
Or books on there.
before. Yeah, books, anywhere you could put them, to move them around.
Uh,
So, clearly, Chela, you became fluent at Braille, because you
yeah,
became a transcriber.
yeah,
And
EPAE.
yeah, and, for those who don't know, that's somebody who produces Braille materials by translating or converting them from print. And that's, you know, I know to be not a very easy feat, because I also do the same kind of thing, Braille transcription. And for a blind person, it's not an easy feat. So congratulations.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know though, what was it exactly that sparked your interest and that made you want to pursue transcription in the first place? Like, what was it that was it something that made you just suddenly decide? Did you wake up one day and suddenly decide, okay, I'm going to be a transcriber, that's what I want to do? Or was it a gradual thing?
Well, it's funny you ask that because in 2017, or rather before 2017, I kept looking for a job. I actually had my certification in uh, office administrative assistant and
Mm.
customer service, and no one really wanted me because, well, you know how discrimination can go.
Yeah, it can be
See a
tough.
blind person, they're like, oh, we don't want you.
Hmm.
We don't have to hire you. Next. But it was word of mouth. And my dad had a customer. Um and he was fixing their garage door or something, and she was telling him what she does for a living, a woman of multiple hats, I should say. And one of the things that she does is being a TVI, a teacher of the visually impaired, for those of you who don't know what TVI stands for. And so I ended up getting word of mouth, and Dad said, "Hey, this could be a possible job for you." She asked if I knew Braille, if I needed a job to do Braille, if I could proofread and do Braille. And I said, "Well, yeah, okay." And so I talked to her, and she after this interview hired me. I was like, "Wow,
Oh,
that's it."
wow.
And so
Sure.
I had to get my finger printed, done, fingerprint, because it was gonna be at a high school in San Jose, and I'm from Concord,
Oh,
California. So it's a long haul. It was like a 3 hour to and from, each way. I had to do 4 modes of transportation. I woke up at 4 in the morning,
wow. Oh my goodness.
and I actually took an Uber to the bus stop, and then I took the 93X, which is a commuter bus, all
Mhm.
the way to the Pleasanton Ace train station, which is the Altamont Corridor Express, and then I took the train all the way to the Diridon train station downtown in San Jose, and then I would take a lift
Wow. Oh my
to my workplace, and then I would work for 6 hours, from like 8:30 to 2:30, and then I would do that haul all the way home,
all the
five
way.
days a week.
Oh, wow.
People thought I was crazy. Blind people and sighted people thought I was crazy, but I loved it. I loved it. It gave me a sense of independence, and it felt good. And I mean, even though there were some crazy people I had to fend myself off from,
Yeah.
thanks to self-defense.
Yeah.
Everybody should learn, uh, um, especially in this day and age where we live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was an interesting experience, and yet I kept thinking to myself for a while, why am I working at a high school? I mean, I thought I would be like working at a company that does, like, I was thinking like, bank statements, or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We all dream about those jobs. I did as well.
And it was just a great precursor as to, like, well, now I kind of understand what all those transcribers, like the transcriber I that did all my work, was kind of stressing out about the teachers not complying with what they needed for accessibility, in regards to
Mhm.
accessibility, and in a timely manner. Now I understand why, and why I actually fell behind sometimes and had to, like, skip certain things other times just to graduate on time with my class peers, and way back when. And so, I like the idea of, you know, making things accessible the way I can. I like helping out, and so after COVID hit, I ended up losing the job because, well, in part of COVID,
Mhm.
and the other part is, well, budget. It wasn't in the budget anymore. So
Yeah. Mhm.
the company that subcontracted me, um, said, well, we're not gonna be able to work at this high school district. The Eastside Union High School District won't hire us because their budget can't afford us. And so uh, I, I, I said, okay, that's fine. And I ended up applying for, what was it? The NLS certification for Braille transcribing literary formats. And I worked on it for 2 years, 10 months, and 1 day. And
Wow.
then I passed it in June.
Yay.
Year, yay me. And then they certified me in August, but I didn't get the certificate until September. So now you're caught up.
But now you've got it.
I'm also a musician too. I play trumpet mainly, and I sing.
Oh wow.
But I also have a piano, and yeah, I love doing things that make me happy, and Braille is one of them.
That's great. And you know what? That is so fascinating, because I think that, you mentioned about wanting to make things accessible, make materials accessible. And, the fact that you're a user of Braille yourself really, makes it all the more special that you also transcribe it, because you have firsthand experience of knowing how Braille should be presented to people who use it, because you use it. And so, I think that's also really great. Another thing that I also thought was really interesting that you mentioned was that you said, that you finally got to know what it was like for the teacher to not have something done in time, or, to skip certain parts. You got to be on the other side of the coin, to know what a Brailleist goes through when transcribing. So here's an interesting question, Chela.
Yeah.
Braille is often, it's displayed in public spaces all around us, right? And people encounter it when we're out and about, like when we're on elevators, on menus in restaurants, you name it, it's there. People put it there, for those who don't know, to raise awareness about Braille. You see it on room numbers in hotels. They are the dots that you see in places above or below the print in hotel rooms and wherever else people decide to put it. So is there a specific place or a space where you either like to visit now as an adult, or you liked to visit when you were a child, just because it offered Braille in some way? For me, it was feeling the Braille on elevators, elevator buttons, but also if it wasn't that, whenever there was a restaurant that had a Braille menu in it, me and my family would literally just go there because they had a Braille menu, because it was so rare, just so that I could read that menu. So what was it for you?
Wow. What was it for me? I can tell you about a time when I went to the California School for the Blind, and one time they had Chinese food. Not trying to get anybody hungry right now, but we at the end of our lunch, we had what they call fortune cookies. And you know how those fortune cookies have slips of paper, and they're usually in print? Well, I was amazed to see the fortune part in Braille on a strip of paper that thin. I'm like, there's no way. But then I was able to read it, and it said something about you will have success in life, or something to the fact of that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Something simple to that. And that's a memory that will always stick out for me. And yet another memory, actually quite not as recent, but recent enough to where I actually still have it with me. A friend of mine who was extremely excited. She was a public safety attendant on the train that I took to and from work. And she's like, "Oh, Braille! I see this," and I know. And she got really excited, and she showed me the and I'm reading it right now. Here it says,
"Oh,
I can't believe I didn't give it back to her."
Still got it, yeah.
I didn't give it back to her. That's pretty funny. It says emergency evacuation, and then it has all of the procedures.
Oh wow!
And it's actually a trifold piece of cardboard stock. Well, it's not really cardboard stock. It's like really thick. Oh, I don't know if it's butcher paper, but it's thick. It's thick enough, and Braille held up well.
Yeah. No, Braille lasts very long on cardboard, and that is so interesting.
I've never seen that before on a train, so I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh!" And my friend Becky, she was all like, "Kayla, take a look at this." I'm like, she's like, "Read it to me." I'm like, she's like, "What does it say?" I'm like, "But you know what it says." She's like, "But I want to see you read it." I'm like, "Okay." Your
Yeah.
fascination intrigues me. Okay. So I read it to her. I said, "This is cool. This is in UEB." And she's like, "What's that?" I'm like, uh, she's like, "What is it? Universal Braille?" I'm like, "Well, it's Unified English Braille." Yeah. She's like, "Well, that's cool. So Braille can be a different language." I'm like, "Well, yeah, foreign languages have their own codes. It's a code."
Yeah, exactly. It's a code, and I like how you call it a code.
Yeah.
Because it is a code. But a lot of
There are
people,
subcodes within that code.
yeah, there are subcodes, exactly. And
Kind
a
of
lot of
like
people,
genres of music, you know? I mean,
yeah,
jazz, for example, has several genres of jazz,
hmm,
you know?
for sure. Yeah,
So,
no, that's very interesting. And and anytime, I'm sure you do the same, but anytime, any chance I get, I will see what any chance I get for Braille, to go and find um Braille that's being displayed. I will have a
like
look
on
at it.
products and things like that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So one of the most common use cases, Shayla, for Braille, especially prior to the invention of AI, when we didn't have things like the Envision glasses, and when we didn't have other apps that are out there that are AI equipped that can translate printed text into spoken words. You know, we often used Braille, as I'm sure you know, to label household items so that you can find them quickly and easily. Like, for example, for those that don't know, we often, take the salt and pepper shakers and label uh, them from salt versus pepper. So you might label the salt shaker with an S, and then a pepper shaker with a P, because often the dots take up a lot of space. So they
Yeah.
can only fit a few letters. You can only fit a few letters on the product that you're trying to label. So that's why you can't fit a whole word. You will just put an S for salt and a P for pepper. So many of us Braille users, as I'm sure those of us who are listening today, have had to come up with some sort of a system, because we can't fit a whole word onto a product when we want to label related items. So I'm curious to know, have you ever developed any kind of labeling system that you would feel comfortable sharing with us, of course, that helps you quickly label related objects and identify them by touch?
Well, for example, for my valve oil and slide grease, I pretty much put GR for grease or O for oil.
Oh, that works.
For the valve oil, because they come in similar bottles or tubing or
Yeah,
bottles.
for sure.
And for medications, I would suggest uh like the first two letters of your uh, medications.
Yeah, that works.
Because there's only so much you can do for a pill bottle.
Yeah, for sure.
uh,
Yeah, that's tiny.
and then for like allergy medication, since, well, for example, like some of them come in a paper box sort of deal.
Mhm. Yeah,
And then so you could probably just put maybe three letters at a
yeah,
time.
3
You
letters
know,
at a time. Mhm. That works.
it's creating your own code, kind of like grade 3 Braille, except it's, well, yeah, grade 3 kind of,
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so that's what I do for labeling certain things.
Yeah, I love how you put it, creating your own code. It's a much better way of saying,
Only
creating
you
your own
know what
system.
you mean.
Yeah, you're creating your own code because only you know what you mean. You know what? That is so interesting. And I've never actually heard it put like that before, but that's what we do exactly. We create our own code. So now for a question about World Braille Day, since we are making this episode in celebration of World Braille Day, that just sort of passed us. We're now into February. So what does this day mean for you? What comes to your mind when you hear this word, World Braille Day? What does it mean?
I'd have to say, um, literacy.
Oh wow.
Literacy, it's how we it's how we go about life. I mean, if we don't know about something, we learn about it. Literacy.
Yeah.
And how do we learn about, how do we get information? We read about it, right? Or we hear about it. But for those of us, some of the listeners may be deafblind too, so they really rely on Braille
Yeah,
for their
exactly.
outlet, and so I'd say literacy is a big thing, and especially Braille awareness, because awareness of that code, uh, to it's fascinating, to sighted people, and they can generally learn about it. Like, oh, when was it? I think last year sometime, I took a slate and stylus, one of those Versa slates, and I ended up sharing with a friend of mine what her name looks like in Braille. Two ways. I showed her first way, everything spelled out, and then I showed her the contracted way, where everything's shortened, and she just was like mesmerized. And so, I think if the more we talk about it, and get it out there, um, and become advocates of Braille, um, I think it's going to be received widely, well received, widely, and it'll spark a lot of curiosity. It'll even spark a lot of conversations. Like, I have this keychain, actually, yeah, I have this key chain lanyard thing, um, and there's two things. So I've got a money brailer that I use in
Oh
Vision.
yeah, the
I can
money. Yeah.
actually ask Ally. I could ask Ally what my what I'm holding,
Hmm.
or I could just use the scan recognition, for the
Hmm.
currency. Either way,
Hmm.
I choose, and either way, one of them can tell me whether it's a 20, and then, or 10 or 5, whatever, and I can actually print that out in Braille on top of the
Oh wow.
currency itself, in addition to folding it, and then I can sort out my money that way. And
Hmm.
then I've got, in addition to that, I've got this little keychain thing. It looks like it's plastic, but it's like a fidget toy sort of deal, but
Yeah.
it's really fun because it's a cell. It's a Braille cell. So you could twist it and make, like, sort of like different combinations of dots, and it's really cool. And it sparked conversation too.
Yeah. No, those are really great things. I especially like how you can use Ally to tell you what bill you're holding, or the cash recognition, and then put the braille on top, and that just makes things 110,000% accessible for you. And the braille cell is something.
I got it from the superstore in Canada.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's right around where I am.
Yeah, and then I have this Braille bracelet. When I went to the state convention that I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
the California NFB state convention in 2019 because I was selected to be the music entertainment. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That went well, except they kept calling me the wrong name.
Oh,
But anyway, it said NFB together. I guess the theme was together, being together. I don't know.
yeah.
But it was cool seeing that in Braille. It
Oh,
was
wow.
awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So are there any specific situations in your life? Okay, so either, during your work or during your personal life where you feel like Braille is absolutely indispensable and audio can't be used as a substitute. You need to have Braille. For me, it's, whenever I need to present something or talk to someone while reading, kind of like what we're doing now in this conversation. I wouldn't be able to, if I didn't know Braille or if I didn't have a Braille display, I wouldn't be able to carry on this conversation with you and ask you all these questions and create this podcast. So
well,
for
you're
you,
doing
is
very
there?
well at it. You're doing
Thank
very
you.
well at it. I honestly think that meetings like this, or any meeting that requires no distraction, would require something like Braille. I would
Right.
suggest that. Or if you're working in an environment where you're in a cubicle or you're sharing a room like we did when I was working for the school district long ago. So back in 2017, we actually shared a room with some English department, I believe it was, and they would come in and out, and anyway, we'd have to be quiet as we possibly can, except for the embosser, of course. But I honestly think those type of places where you must use Braille would definitely be a must. I'd say church. When you're reading the Bible, no one wants to hear your speech output.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I'd say bring a Braille display, like a 20 cell Braille display or something, like the
Right.
e-reader from NLS or something,
Mm-hmm.
or the Brilliant BIX20. I have the BIX40 for my work purposes, and I have
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
an e-reader for church and
Wow.
portability.
Yeah.
But um, I would say that any sort of things like that. If you want to, like, for instance, read a book, and you don't need a light to do it now. You can do it like me, do it in the dark here
Yeah.
with Braille, and no one will even know. And
No
hey,
one will even know.
I've read Braille backwards before and can make sense out of it.
Yeah.
It
It's
would totally bug my elementary teacher when I did that. It would totally baffle her. I'm like, I did it.
good for you. Yeah, no, those are great. And
You would wait. You would save a lot of for PG&E in that way. You don't need, unless you wanted to use the glasses for that, which is
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah, for sure. So we're just about done, but for people, just before we finish up here, for people who are interested to start learning Braille, do you have any tips, like, strategies or perspectives, or even just some thoughts, that would encourage someone to stick with their learning of Braille, especially if they are, just imagine, someone is just a beginner, a learner, and they're just thinking about getting started learning Braille. What if they're just not motivated to continue, when you get to a certain point and things just,
Feel
get too
frustrated.
confusing. Yeah, what would you say to somebody who knows they want to continue, but they're just kind of, they've reached a plateau moment?
Well, I would say, I would say, first of all, you got to go with your gut. You got to do what works best for you. We all have different learning styles, and I went through two teachers when I did the UEB course. First teacher didn't work very well for me. So I ended up having to retake the course after failing lesson
Oh.
15 3 times. So with the first instructor, so I had to wait 6 months. Yeah, 6
wow.
months in order to restart it. And so I ended up starting it in January of 2023 again. And on World Braille Day, actually, Louis Braille's
Oh, wow.
birthday. So that was
Coincidentally,
good. That was a good luck for me, you know. And I'm not Irish, so just
yeah.
say it. But no, I would say, you gotta pick the right teacher that knows you, that knows how you learn, and if not, pick a partner to like study with, a study buddy. Have a study buddy system, or there are some free alternatives to learning Braille. I mean, I'm sure Hadley has courses. There's also, I think they also have a beginner Braille course too, but the Braille Foundation has remote courses in Braille too. There are other ways of learning, and if you have a friend that already knows Braille, pick their brain. It doesn't take much, and then you can see how passionate they are about Braille, and they'll be able to help you, or I mean, to learn at least something, I mean, about it. And just take your time. You don't have to rush through it. It's not like, oh, I gotta learn this by a certain date. No, it's like anything in life. You gotta put one foot forward, and then take it slow. And that's my advice. Do what works best for you. That's the motto I live by.
Do what works best for you. I love it. So that brings us to the end of our conversation today. Thank you so much again, Chela, for taking the time to share your invaluable thoughts and all of your perspectives with me and with our listeners. We truly appreciate it. And again, it was such an honor to have you on our episode, but also to talk to somebody who is just as passionate about transcribing Braille and making it accessible as I am, but also as many of us are in this world today who are listening. So I wish you well, Chela. Thank you so much, and happy Brailing.
Thank you so much, and you too.